Alright, in this video I want to get into judgment, but before I do, I want to point out how there's two groups, and there's a reason why I picked this right here, because on this side we got easy believism, once saved, always saved, saved by grace through faith, that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. On this side, you have lordship salvationists, who believe you need works to prove you have saving faith. So it's basically faith plus works, or grace plus faith that works. That's where your salvation comes from. So you got two groups, right? But they're basically the same. There's only a small difference, and that's what I'm going to get into here, is that the side over here, the once saved, always saved, they believe that you should not sin and they should do good works. This side believes you should not sin and do good works. Right? So they believe the same thing. The difference is this side knows that you're not saved by not sinning. You're not saved by doing good works, because that means you saved yourself. You can't save yourself. This side believes that you need to stop sinning and you need to do good works, or else you're not saved. You're not truly saved. This is adding your own works to what Jesus already did. That's why I put this here, because first comes grace, your faith in God's grace. That saves you. That's done and over with. You are saved. Then comes good works. Well, the lordship salvationists think, oh, you need the good works to make sure you keep a hold of that grace. And that's not how it works. And as we go through this series, you'll see that this is true. So if you're going to be on this side where you need a faith that works, you're going to start to become judgmental. You're going to start to become a Pharisee. And I'm going to explain. Before I explain, oh my goodness here. Every time I talk about something like this and what I'm going to get into, what's the first thing I hear? We are supposed to judge. Don't you know we're going to judge angels? We're going to judge all things. How are we supposed to tell what is good and what is evil if we don't judge? I've never said not to judge. And what I'm getting into doesn't say not to judge. So pump the brakes there, all right, before you start saying that. It's basically saying two things here. One is, don't condemn others. Why? Because when you condemn somebody else, you condemn yourself. And it's saying to judge righteously. So let's say you drink alcohol and you condemn others for drinking alcohol. You're a hypocrite. That's an unrighteous judgment. But if you clean up your own act and you don't drink alcohol, and then you point out to somebody, don't drink alcohol, well, at least your judgment is now right. It's not a hypocritical judgment. So, of course, yes, we are to judge. But one thing we can't judge is salvation. So don't condemn others, because then you condemn yourself. And if you're going to judge somebody for doing something, make sure you're not doing it yourself. So let's get into this. It says, judge not that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged, and with that measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again. So if you condemn somebody, it's going to be measured to you again. You see, when you become a lordship salvationist, guess what? You become a Pharisee. You know what you do? You're that group that grabbed that woman caught in adultery in the middle of fornication. They grab her and you bring her to Jesus. And you're like, the law says to stone her. We need to put her to death. And Jesus sits there and writes the 10 Commandments with his finger in the sand. And he gets up and he says, okay, whichever one of you is without sin, you cast the first stone. And then each one of you has to just walk away, because you realize right then that you yourself are a sinner. So if you condemn that woman for sin, you deserve to be condemned as well. That's why he's saying, judge not, lest ye be judged. Because if you're going to judge, you better make sure it's a righteous judgment, because that same measure that you meet is going to be measured to you. So when you lordship salvationists condemn me, you condemn yourself. Because we're both in sin. We're both sinners. We're both not perfect. And we're not going to be perfect in this life. So when you condemn me and say, this is a sinner, you're condemned. Some of you are so hardcore to say, I'm going to hell and everything. You are condemning yourself because you yourself are a sinner yourself. How am I condemned for my sin, but you're not? What's the difference between us? How come you get forgiveness and I don't? How does that make any sense to you? I have faith in Jesus that he forgives me. So do you. So why do you condemn me for sin, but you don't condemn yourself? And that is part of the problem, is that your mindset makes it where you think you are condemned because you're still not perfect and you don't keep the law. But that's not how it works. We have been freed from condemnation. We've been freed from the law. We're not under the law, we're under grace. God saves us in spite of our sinful ways. And I know the reason why you condemn me is because inside you condemn yourself. Because while you're under this law, Satan is always there letting you know, God's not going to accept you. Look at you. You're sinning. Oh, I heard what you said. That's not something Jesus would do. That's not very Christian of you. Oh, that thought. Oh, that was a nasty thought you had right there. Whew, God's not going to like that one. You're just constantly condemning yourself. Because you're not perfect, and you never will be. So you feel like you're doomed, and that's why you judge unto others that they are doomed. Because you yourself are not right with God. You need to work things out with him. You need that saving faith. It goes on to say, and behold, and why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thy own eye? This is that same thing. You have sin in your eye, but you're worried about the sin in my eye. Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thy own eye? Thou hypocrite! First cast out the beam out of thy own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. So if you're going to condemn me for sin and try to pull sin out of my life, make sure you're sinless. So if you're on that lordship salvation side and you're getting on me about keeping the law to stop sinning and to do these good works, I expect you to be sinless and perfect. Because if not, you might want to just bite your tongue. Because you're condemning yourself. Paul goes a bit more into this. Romans chapter 2. I mean, this all goes into it. I just wanted to get into this small part here. It says here, therefore thou art inexcusable, O man, whosoever thou art that judgest. For wherein thou judgest another, thou condemnest thyself. For thou that judgest dost the same things. Because you condemn me for sin, you're a sinner. Hello? But we are sure that the judgment of God is according to truth against them which commit such things. And thinkest thou this, O man, that judgest them which do such things, and doest the same, that thou shalt escape the judgment of God? Let's go down here to 17. Behold, I know you may not consider yourself a Jew, but you still think you're under this law, right? The Ten Commandments and whatnot. So that's what we're going to go with here. You're Judaizing here. Verse 17, behold, thou art called a Jew, and restest in the law, and makest thy boast of God, and knowest his will, and approvest the things that are more excellent, being instructed out of the law. Yeah, so you got that high Pharisee mindset, because you have the law, and you're instructed out of the law. And art confident that thou thyself art a guide to the blind, a light of them which are in darkness, which is exactly how you lordship salvationists act. An instructor of the foolish, a teacher of babes, which hast the form of knowledge and of the truth in the law. Thou therefore which teachest another, teachest thou not thyself? Thou that preachest a man should not steal, dost thou steal? Thou that sayest a man should not commit adultery, dost thou commit adultery? Thou that abhorrest idols, dost thou commit sacrilege? Thou that makest thy boast of the law, through breaking the law, dishonourest thou God. For the name of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles through you, as it is written. Because that's exactly why unbelievers criticize Christians. They always call them Christians hypocrites. Because it's even worse. Like, you judge me as a sinner. But how are you going to win these people over in the world? Like unbelievers. When you condemn them for something you yourself are doing. How does that make any sense? You're sitting there in sin, thinking you're high and mighty, you got the law, you're going to follow the law, someday maybe. And then you turn around and you tell these unbelievers, you're sinners and you need to obey the law. And it's like, okay, you first. Continuing on here. For circumcision verily profiteth, if thou keep the law. But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. And I know some people say, well, see, we're talking about the ceremonial law. No, we just went over a couple of the 10 Commandments, not stealing, not making idols, adultery. So, yeah, enough with that. Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? And shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee, who by the letter and circumcision dost transgress the law? Now just think of this. Somebody who's uncircumcised and fulfills the law. How is somebody without the law going to fulfill it? Well, by faith in Jesus. That's how. I'm given his righteousness. I'm not putting my works down. I don't even want to. Don't even want to think about doing that. But if I sit in Jesus' righteousness, and then I turn and I see you who think, oh, I need to be keeping the law, but you transgress the law, well, then I got to judge you by your own standard there. You're saying keep the law, you're teaching other people to keep it, and you're condemning them. I'd be like, okay, well, we need to apply that to you. You're not keeping it, so you're condemned. Because you obviously don't have the faith in Jesus. Even though you think you got these works, you obviously don't have the fruit. One of the fruits is faith, something you seem to be lacking. Luke chapter 11. Part of the prayer, the Lord's Prayer, it says, and forgive us our sins, for we also forgive everyone that is indebted to us. Right? That's the way it ought to be. Where Jesus is beaten and mutilated, where he didn't even look human anymore. Stripped naked, mocked as a king, with a crown of thorns, spit on, humiliated, made to drag a wooden cross down a street so he can go out of the city and be crucified. And still continued to be mocked by people who were crucified with him. And what does Jesus say? Oh, forgive them, for they know not what they do. But you, what do you do that believe in Lordship salvation? You that believe we need to keep the law. Do you forgive me even though I didn't even sin against you? Do you forgive the world even though we didn't even sin against you? God himself forgives us, but you don't forgive us. You condemn us. So how can this prayer apply to you? You forgive us our sins as we forgive others that did it to us. You're a hypocrite. You don't even see it. You're blind. So anyway, that was part such and such of my Saved by Grace series here. I don't know what part I'm at here, but Anyways, thanks for watching, and I think there'll be more. There should be more. Take care.